I think so.
I never thought in a million years I would sit on my porch and film a video of me sobbing my eyes out to post online for everyone to see. God. This will be the hardest video I've ever made in my entire life and probably ever will make. You know, I felt like a social media post wasn't enough. I haven't posted on here in over a month, and it didn't feel genuine to just post normal video. Like, I have videos that are filmed and ready to post that I can't, it doesn't feel right to post without being honest about everything. And holding stuff in for me makes my head not right. And when I'm going through something as tough as this, my head has to be right, and I can't post just a normal video again and act like everything's the same, because it never will be. I turn on the camera and I try to film, and then I just start crying again, and this is like an hour and a half into me making the video, and for you, you're probably at 12 seconds. So last Thursday, I was talking to my mom about, I'd spent the whole day looking at rental properties. I'm on the verge of buying my first rental property, and I'd spent the whole day looking at them. I came home and was really excited because I found one that I wanted to put an offer on, and I really had a good gut feeling about this one. So it's even hard to look at the camera. I don't even want to look at myself in the viewfinder right now. I was talking to my mom about this house, and she was so happy and proud of me, and everything was... God, it's so hard to talk about. I was telling my mom about this rental property I wanted to buy, and so everything was fine. There was no issues at all. Like, she was laughing, breathing perfectly fine. There was no issues at all. You would never think in a million years that something like this would have happened. I'd walked out of the door and made my way to the gym. A few minutes later, I got a call from my dad, and my dad never calls me. Like, we text each other and we talk in person. He doesn't talk on the phone that much. And I knew in my gut something was wrong when he called me, because he doesn't call me at 8:30 at night. And I answered it, and he said, "I think mom had a stroke." He said, "I think mom had a stroke. She's unconscious. I just called 911. So I'm still in the car. I turned around as fast as I could and made my way home. I was driving 110 miles an hour over the Hathaway Bridge, which is, the speed limit is like 35 or 45. I got here in 4 minutes. So whenever I pulled in the driveway, I saw, from like before I even got close to my street, so many lights. There were so many fire trucks and police and ambulance, like, filling up my entire street where we live. And I had gotten to the house. Like, I want to tell the full story because I need to get it off my chest, but it's so hard to talk about this on camera, and it's like, I don't know how much of this I want to be able to look back on. I had just gotten to the house. I parked my car like way down in the middle of the road because that's the only spot that I could even get to. I had just walked to the front door, and they wouldn't let me inside the house because there's 20 people standing inside my living room, but I could still see through the window, and that's where I was standing. And all I could see was that they had just pulled her on the floor, and they had cut off her clothes and doing compressions. Like, they had a breathing thing in her mouth and were just pushing on her. Like, it was the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I've never seen someone give CPR before, but when you give CPR to someone on such a life-threatening level, most of the time you're breaking their ribs trying to bring them back. And they were doing compressions, and it seemed like I was standing there for an hour watching them try to get her breathing again. And they had gotten, like, the defibrillator thing, I don't know what it's called, where they hook the things up to you and they shock you. And I just remember them shocking her and, like, her whole body jumping, and it just, like, they had continued to try to get her breathing again And all I knew at this point was that she had a stroke and that she was unconscious. I didn't know anything more than that. I remember just thinking, like, why are they still doing CPR? Like, they still doing it, and they should stop by now. She should be breathing and up and sitting up again because they had been doing it for so long. And my dad turns around the corner and tells me that her heart stopped beating. Those are probably the worst words I've ever heard in my entire life. A couple minutes later, they picked her body up and put it in, like, the gurney. And I just remember there's this flash that I can't get out of my head where they put her in the gurney and her arm just fell, and it was like a dead person's arm. Like, it was the, like, worst thing you could ever see. And I just remember, it's like, you know when you shoot a gun without headphones on, and you just hear that, like, high-pitched squeak noise, like it's just a continuous, like, beeping that you can't get out of your brain. I just remember when your arm dropped, I started to hear that noise and my hearing went out. And the whole world, like, just went dark, and I was like, okay, I'm passing out. From that point into when my brother got to the house, a few minutes later, I have absolutely no idea what happened. Like, my brain really just shut off because it was just so much. I've been through a lot in my life, from depression and addiction, and I've been at my lowest, and I know what that's like, and I know that I can get out of it. But going through something like this, it's not just, you know, you get old and your parents die, because that's how life is. Not only was she my mom, but she was 55. Like, I would have never in a million years thought that that would just happen. So they took her to the hospital, and probably about 30 minutes after we arrived to the hospital, I got a text from my dad. My dad was the only person allowed to go in. I wasn't allowed to go in the hospital at all because of COVID restrictions. And my dad texted me and said they got her heart beating again. I honestly thought that she was dead. I really thought that we were gonna go there and hear she didn't make it, it's gone. What I saw whenever she got in that gurney was a dead person, and I know what I saw, and I didn't have any hope on the way to the hospital. And when he said her heart started beating on its own, I just fell. That night, we didn't really get to know what had happened. We thought that it was a stroke, but then when they said that her heart wasn't beating, we thought maybe it was a heart attack. And the timelines are even crazier. It happened on Thursday. I had just walked out of the door after talking to her, like everything was completely fine. At 8:45, she sent a text to her friend just to check on her, because she checks on everybody because she's amazing. At 8:50, her head dropped. At 8:54, there were paramedics inside my house already. This could not have been a better case scenario for something like this to happen. So all of this happened Thursday night. On Wednesday, they put her into what they call therapeutic hypothermia, where basically your body temperature naturally is like 98 degrees or something, and they basically give you hypothermia. They lower your temperature down to like 91.5 degrees, which is what hypothermia is. So the point in doing this is they'll lower your temperature for 24 hours to the point of hypothermia. It slows down everything in your body and gives your brain a fighting chance to recover and come back from a stroke or a heart attack or whatever it was that we didn't know what it was. So it wasn't until Sunday that we actually got some bit of news, because we had gotten, one of the nurses told us that there was no massive bleeding to the brain, which means that there probably wasn't a stroke, that her brain is going to be okay, which means that everything else is can function. I think it's taken hours, but I think I've cried enough in the beginning of this video that I can finally talk and not have to pause and cry for like 30 minutes and then get back to camera. So Sunday, they finally asked my dad to come to the hospital so they could talk. At this point, all we knew was that she probably had a heart attack. Maybe it was a stroke. We knew that her heart stopped and that her heart got beating again. And honestly, like, I had looked into this hypothermia or therapeutic hypothermia. I've done so much research Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night that I really had high hopes for all of this to be okay, because when treated right, it can really save lives. So I really had high hopes. And I remember Sunday morning, I was sitting at home alone. My dad was at the hospital and my brother was on his way to my house, and we're just sitting there waiting to hear something. Is she awake? Is she conscious? Is she talking? Can she be on her phone yet? Can I talk to her on the phone yet? Can I FaceTime? Like, these are all the things that we're going through our heads. And keep in mind, we haven't been allowed inside the doors of the hospital this entire time. And my dad texted and said, okay, it's very bad. You need to come ICU room 7. Knowing that we weren't allowed in the hospital prior to this was a sure sign that she was either dead or about to be dead, and that we needed to make it there fast to go and say our goodbyes. My brother was close to my house. He came and picked me up and we drove to the hospital, and that's when my dad told us that she didn't have a heart attack. She went from being completely fine to complete cardiac arrest. So when you have a heart attack, it's your heart skipping a beat and fighting and getting out of rhythm. Cardiac arrest is when your heart just completely stops instantly. Some people that die from heart attacks, they'll have a heart attack which will turn into cardiac arrest, and that's what kills them. My mom was watching TV like everything was completely fine and her heart just stopped. My dad told me and my brother that she had the cardiac arrest, and then the cardiac arrest was followed by 4 massive strokes, and that she was essentially brain dead and in a vegetative state, meaning she'll never talk again, she'll never communicate again, or my mom had already signed, I forgot what it's called, but whatever that legal document is, that if something like this ever happened, we wouldn't have to make the decision of keep her alive but not living on machines and tubes for the rest of her life, or to essentially pull the plug. She had already signed papers that took the control out of us, that if something like this ever happened, we wouldn't have a say. They would just pull the plugs. I know in my heart that if my mom had it her way, she would not want to be sitting in that hospital knowing that people are worrying about her, and my mom wouldn't have wanted that to be her life. My mom lived an amazing life. There's so many flashbacks from that night, and every time I thought about my mom, the nurses let us come in to her room and see her and say our goodbyes. I just remember going up to her hospital bed and just hugging her and telling her that I would love her and that I would make her proud. God, I got to say my goodbyes, and I got to see her in a state where she's not. It doesn't seem like a horror movie, even though I know some people have bad memories of seeing someone in ICU with all the tubes hooked up and the machines and monitors and everything. And honestly, I had so much trauma in my brain from that other night that when I walked into the room, I literally just saw like my beautiful mother sitting there asleep. And they didn't want to pull the plug that day in case something else came up in the morning and maybe they were wrong. So we all knew that it was over. But we fell asleep one more night not knowing for sure. And the next day they were gonna pull the plug. I know my mom, I didn't want to be there. I had said my goodbyes and I made peace with it, and I didn't want to watch that last breath that she took. I had seen enough that I can see, and that's something I didn't want to see, and I know that my mom wouldn't have wanted me to see it. So my dad went, my brother went, and a couple of very, very close friends that are basically family went and watched her take her last breath. My dad held her hand when she left. It may sound crazy to some people, but I know my mom and how she thinks. And if she was here, she would not have wanted me to be in that room. She would have wanted me to do something that I really loved. She would have wanted me to have a good day that day. And so that's what I did. I went on a date and I went to Starbucks, went on the beach and just swam in the water, tanned, and I just had a really good time. And when I think back to that day, which is May 24th, I don't think about saying goodbye to my mom. I think about having a really good day and my mom being there. Whether you believe it's up in heaven or she's resting in memory in my head or whatever it is that you believe. I'm making this video because one, it just doesn't seem right to just post as if everything is okay because I'm gonna act different. Things might be a little different. It just felt right to come on and be honest about everything. But also, I know that I'm not alone. I know that somebody watching this has been through something similar, or maybe you lost a parent at a young age and are feeling lost and don't know what to do. I'm not here to give advice either. I haven't figured out what the way out is. I mean, I've made it out of some really dark times in my life, but this is different. My mom was truly my best friend growing up. I was homeschooled and my mom has been there for me since day one. Like, if she goes to hang out with her friends, I'll go with her. If I'm going to somewhere with my friends, like, I'll invite my mom. Like, me and my mom were like 2 peas in a pod's best friends. Like, a bond that you could ever break. Like, something I'm grateful for is most people don't have to say goodbye to their mom at age 22, but also most people don't get the relationship that I had with my mom. My relationship with my mom was really, really short-lived. Like, way too short. But the 22 years that I got with my mom, better than anybody else has ever had a relationship with their parents. I go through periods where I'm grateful for things or I'm not grateful for things or whatever, but something I've always stood for and been incredibly grateful for is that I have the best possible family build that you can have. I have one brother, a mom and a dad, never split. They've been married 28 years. No marriage is perfect, but my parents have shown me that when things go wrong, you commit and you make it right. And something I've always been thankful for my parents is their marriage. The fact that I've seen them go through a fight and make it right. My mom just cared about people so much. I'm really fast paced. I like to get shit done and worry about consequences later. And my mom wasn't like that. My mom would take the time to call people she hadn't talked to in months just to check on them and see how they were. Every time I ever come home, I always see her on the phone with somebody. And sometimes it would be somebody I didn't like, and I'm like, why are you wasting your time talking to that person? You deserve better than that. And she's like, life's not always about that. And I always just let it roll past my head, and it's not until she passed away that I really realized, like, my mom has always been there for every person that she knows. My mom has the biggest heart I've ever seen in anybody. She just cared about people so much more than even I do. We all have our ways of living and things that we prioritize, and I look past a lot of things that my mom would always remind me to slow down and enjoy something as simple as the wind chimer behind me that she loved always sitting here and looking at that wind chimer and the birds in the trees. Like, ever since she passed, I noticed the weirdest things, like the sound of birds. I'm not sure when I'll post my next video. It might be in a week, it might be in 2 weeks. This is gonna be a really hard roller coaster. It's gonna be a hard thing to go through and to get through. I wanted to post this video now because I know that some people are going through the same thing and can watch this video and know that they're not alone, and then watch me a year from now when I've really made something. You can't make something better out of it, but turn this into as most of a positive way that it can be, and hopefully use it to help other people. I think I ran out of things to say. I wish this video could have a super happy ending and, be like, woo guys, woo, but it's not gonna be like that for this one. Something I do want to say is that I truly believe you can get through anything in life. I don't think that life puts you through something you can't handle. And I don't know what the silver lining is going to be out of something like this. Going through depression or addiction or issues with eating or whatever you could possibly be going through, you can turn that around and use it as fuel to be better. And the tough thing with something like this is that no matter how much I turn it around and no matter how much I make it better, I won't have my best friend with me. And I don't know what my life is going to look like now. I still believe that there's a silver lining in every situation, even something as horrible as this. And if you're going through this, I hope that you believe the same thing. Luckily, I've been through enough that in this point in my life, I have surrounded myself with the best possible team and the best possible friends and even family. Like, I really am surrounded by the best people possible. At night, I'll be FaceTiming 3 different people so I'm not alone. It's hard because when something like this happens, a piece of you dies. When someone this close to you just suddenly passes, it's really your heart's right here and this top half just turns black and dies. And that's the best way I can think to explain it. And that hole is probably always gonna be there. My goal is to fill it with something amazing. I hope that if anything, this video helps at least one person that's going through the same thing. Maybe you're up late at night watching a bunch of these videos trying to find someone who has been through a similar situation. I know that one of the first things I did after this happened, I watched Roman Atwood's video. If you don't know who Roman Atwood is, he's a big YouTuber, and long story short, he lost his mom way unexpectedly, and he made a video kind of similar to the video that I'm making, and watching that really, really helped me. And that's kind of why I wanted to make sure I made this video even though I didn't want to. I know it's uncomfortable. But I think I'm going to go ahead and end it here. If you made it to the end of this video, man, I really appreciate it. You are true family. As Roman Atwood would say, smile more.